Hi, everyone. This is Tammy with VA to VA. I'm sorry, we're just had a few technical difficulties this morning, but we're here. And we're so happy you're joining us either live or watching us in the replay. We really appreciate you. There will be three of us here. Right now, again, I'm Tammy with Tammy's Office Solutions, and we are a multi-VA company that provides bookkeeping, digital marketing, virtual assistant services, and writing services. We're out of Richmond, Virginia, and but we service everywhere in the U.S. and Canada. So, and then my colleague, Nanette, I'll let you introduce yourself.
I am Nanette Telemack. I'm with, in essence, Virtual Assistants out of Newbury, New Hampshire, and we offer a wide variety of services to as business support, from administrative, graphic design, digital marketing, a variety of things to companies, and that's pretty much it.
Great, thanks, Nanette. So we're going to be talking this morning about invoicing. And this is a big problem, or can be a problem, as well as a great resource for freelancers and virtual assistants. And especially multi-VA companies, this is a huge part of our business that we have to keep on top of, especially if we want cash flow and the ability to pay our contractors and things like that. So Nanette, I know you did a lot of research on this. We really appreciate it. And I'm going to turn it over the intro to you, and then we'll go from there. And by the way, Lisa probably will be joining us with Augusta virtual assistants as well in just a few moments. Thank you, Nanette.
You're welcome. Well, basically, this is a subject, as Tammy said, that we need to really touch on, because you can't run your business if you're constantly waiting for payment. And if you're a small business or freelancer doing consulting or project-based work, track billable work. And for a lot of freelancers, getting paid is often a huge pain point. You must, wrangle hours and output and turn that into an invoice and send it off to the client. Once that's over, the average freelancer may wait 30 to 60 days before getting paid for the hard work, or even worse. Sometimes freelancers don't get paid. And lost wages due to non-payment from clients is really huge for us, especially if this is if this is your full business and you're not don't have a side business like I do. I still don't want to have to wait that long, even though I do have a full-time job. It's because I'm using this money strictly on my business, and if I have a subcontractor, they need to get paid as soon as possible. So you don't want to have to fight tooth and nail to get paid due to non-payment from clients. It's a huge issue for small business and self-employed. Some hiring firms feel free to pay outside workers late, and some never pay at all. So in today's session, we will discuss how to track work for your customers, create invoices, as well as how to pay your subcontractors, the different ways you can pay them, what's the best practices for doing that. And for your contracting work, we're going to list best practices for in getting paid on time. We will also cover how to bill your contractor appropriately. And lastly, we'll discuss what your options are if you find yourself stuck with a deadbeat customer, somebody that you're constantly asking for payment and you're not getting it. So those are pretty much the three topics we're gonna touch on today. And I know Tammy's gonna set it off with how to track customers and subcontractors and set up invoicing. So take it away, Tammy.
Great, thanks, Nanette. I appreciate that. Yes, as Nanette said, these are just crucial items for us as virtual assistants, as our own business. We have to be able to invoice and invoice properly, and it's important too, to be professional in it. And so even the template you set up and the way you do your invoicing is very important. So first, we're going to talk about how to track work for your customers and subcontractors and to set up your invoicing. So the first thing I would say, I know when I first began, and I don't know about Annette and Lisa, but I actually just used a Word document template that I did and sent off to them, and then they would send the check. I didn't even I did accept Square, I think, as credit card payment. But as I began to grow, I knew that was not going to hold up very long because it was too much work to set up every invoice and all of those items. Plus, I needed to keep track of my time, not just on my own little clock, but actually that I could prove, this was my time and to send to clients if I needed to. So it was really important that I find a great invoicing software. Now, there's a lot of them out there, and especially lately, there's been some newer ones as well. I personally use FreshBooks because it was created especially for freelancers, contractors like us, who are doing just service-based. It wouldn't be good for those who sell products and other things, and have cost of goods sold. But for service-based industries, FreshBooks is a great solution. It allows you to keep track of your time. It allows you to assign it to a client into projects. It even allows you to assign subcontractors as well. So you can add subcontractors to it, and they can just add the time to your invoices, which is wonderful. And then you're not having to do the extra work because, as you know, we don't have a lot of time as it is, especially to be able to be following up on the contractors and everybody else. So finding a software that can do all of that is crucial. Now, I know also that you can invoice from PayPal. You can also invoice from within QuickBooks. And there's some new ones, and I can't remember, one of the names was Sabo. I don't know, Nanette, if you remember that one or not, but it's a newer one. And then there are a few other ones, but if you do a Google search, you'll be able to find one, and one that suits your needs. Just make sure it keeps track of time. Make sure, because, it's great to do packaging pricing, but sometimes clients still want to see, well, what was that time spent on? Keep good notes and all of that within the system. So like with FreshBooks, there's a little timer. You can put all the notes in there and everything. And that's what I ask of my contractors as well. So be consistent in the formatting of your invoices. So if you're billing, say, packages, you want to be sure that you're consistently putting the same wording in there. Also make sure that under the terms, this is really important. And part of this is going to be set up ahead of time when you talk to the client. But when is your invoice due? Is it due 30 days or is it due within the first week? One of the things that I put on my invoices is that it's due upon receipt, and my clients know that. And they know that they'll get, little reminders if they don't send right away. And the other thing is, because I do package pricing, which is in advance, if I don't get paid for a week or two, I'm going to stop working for that client because I want to ensure that I'm going to be paid. Especially if I don't know them or it's first time client. That's crucial that you know and that you don't get burned on that. Now, at the same time, the client wants to be assured that you're going to be working as well. So it has to be a mutually trustworthy, relationship. And so it's very important that you do these things. So keep consistent. So if you're keeping time and you're just billing for time, then make sure you're doing that and showing your time and on a consistent basis as far as inside the invoicing. And then I put, that it is due immediately upon receipt. But then I also put that there's going to be a percentage due starting at whatever date, like whatever, if it's 7 days out or 30 days out or whatever that is, I make sure that's on every invoice. This is very important because that's almost like a contract. And when they receive that invoice each month, it's going to have that on there. And so it's just important to cover yourself in that way. And you want it to look professional. So when you do start using a software, they have multiple templates usually that you can choose. So I say, start with a good template. It may change a little over time, but for the most part, they're going to get used to seeing the same thing as coming into their inbox, and they're going to recognize it. And that's important too, because you don't want to be switching that up every month and they're not sure where it's coming from every month. So make sure that you are, using that, and that your subcontractors are also using that. The other thing is, make sure that you're consistent in your pricing schedules rather than products. Pricing can fluctuate depending on what's involved in the services, So one of the examples is, if we have an annual plumbing inspection, might consist of the same standard, but therefore it's a fixed amount of time. But fixing a leak may take 15 minutes or several hours. So depending on the root of the problem and the person attempting the repair, it can, obviously you have to bill hourly, but you still need some consistency. So especially if you have a new contractor working on a new task, and it might take a little bit longer. This is where billing, packages really helps also, because it kind of cushions all of that in there in that respect. So you just want to make sure that your customers, your clients are happy, that they understand your billing process and that they know how to pay that invoice as well. So make sure that it's clear on your invoice how they should pay you, whether that's sending a check, whether there's a link that they can click on to pay you by credit card or PayPal. Make sure all of that is very clear on your invoice. Now, in regard to paying subcontractors, this is a big deal for me because I value my subcontractors more than I can even say. And so they are top priority. They get paid first. And so as soon as that hits my account, I'm paying them right away. But you want to make sure that you have certain expectations right from the beginning of your relationship with them. Usually PayPal is a very general acceptance, I'm tongue-tied this morning, of how to be paid. So most people can be paid through PayPal through their email address. Whether it's an overseas contractor or whether it's in the States or Canada, which is wonderful. However, just make sure that in the contract that you're doing with them and in all of your meetings with them, that you are definitely telling them up front how it works and how not only how it works, but when they should expect payment. So like my contractors know as soon as it hits my account, they're going to be paid. And that's within the contract too. I say that I have to be paid by the client, but I will tell you that if ever I've had anybody not pay me fully, I still tried to pay my subcontractors. That's a very rare case, but that's how much I value my contractors. So they did the work for me, and and it's just very important. And I know that my colleagues feel the same way because we value our subcontractors so much. Now, some clients will expect to pay only a portion down or nothing until you work for them, and then they want to pay after. This has been a big conversation lately in one of my online communities, and I just want to guard against some of this, only to say that, yes, I've been there. I've waited to be paid until after all the work was done, and it's very hard to collect after sometimes. If and just granted, most clients are very trustworthy, most are genuine, been in business a long time, things like that. But just know, especially for startups and others that you're not familiar with or haven't received a recommendation on them from somebody, that it's very important that you at least get a deposit of some type down. Now, if they're hesitant to pay up front, then what I did was do a setup fee. I required a certain amount up front, what I called a setup fee to get them set up in my systems and everything. And most didn't even balk at it. They were happy to pay that. The other thing that you can do is pay 50%. Now they can pay 50% up front, then bill the remaining either at completion or in the middle of the job. Now, if you do websites, this is very common. A lot of times it's 50-50 or a third, and a third. A lot of times that's how websites are billed too. So I understand that sometimes that's also, when you're working on a project, that's how it has to be as well. So, bill upon the milestones, but at least get a deposit of some sort, just so that you're covered. And then also make sure that your subcontractors are billing you on a regular basis. So in order for you to pay them regularly and pay them clearly, you need to have them billing you on a very regular basis. So just make sure that they understand that they must also invoice you correctly and professionally so that they will be paid on time. So keeping the standardized approach across the board, getting on the same page with them, as well as your clients, it just makes it clear for everyone, the expectation, as well as using the software that can automate much of it. Because if you do have the same billing every month, you can even put it on an auto bill every month, and then the client will just get it every month. So you don't have to take the time out to actually do the manual part of the invoicing. So I think we're going to move on. So that's about it about setting up. And then Nanette, I think you're going to take the best practices for us. Is that correct? And I think Lisa's joining in.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Lisa. We can't see you, but we hear you.
Okay, I will work on my camera while Nanette talks, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, I'm glad she made it. I guess the next subject is best practices for invoicing and getting paid on time and for paying subcontractors. So there are, like anything, there's always best practices and things you should remember to do. And it doesn't hurt to go over them. And maybe there's a couple of things that may be helpful to people. One is discuss invoicing details at the beginning, and that's the best practice. When you have a new client, make sure when you start working with a new customer, it's good to get the invoicing details confirmed as early as possible. Some customers will stall on an invoice payment simply because of one thing, something simple. I call these like little tiny excuses to drag it out, such as purchase order number is missing, or you haven't set your payment terms in your contract, and what happens when there's an overdue payment, i.e. late charges or net 20, net 10, whatever is not in there. And so that's just opening the door to pushing it out. Or they may say, I don't have an address, or I don't have the details of how to pay. So all that information you want to have on up front. So make sure you have, your process down and your invoices set up appropriately. Number 2 is to make sure all information is given to your customer prior to work. Does your customer need a W-9? I have a couple of customers I work on a regular basis. So before they can even start invoicing, they want a W-9 at the start of our working relationship. So make sure you have that. And does your customer want a specific project name or a PO on the invoice? Does your customer have multiple business addresses and you need a particular one on the invoicing for proper routing? Or maybe send a second one to an accountant. So all those kind of information you want to get clear from the very beginning before you start. Find out these things early on so that they don't have a legitimate excuse to delay your payment to you. Know how the customer wants to be invoiced. Most customers are fine with being invoiced online or via email, but some old school mail, and they may want it that way. I know I've talked to certain clients, and it's funny, they don't like to use email a lot, or rather texting. So you need to follow what they're comfortable doing, and so know that up front. That gives you some leeway and some time, for you to plan your time and when you want to invoice them. Be sure to send your invoices, accordingly to their specification, because you may be, a techno like me or something, but if they're not, you really need to follow the process that works for them. Offer more than one way to pay. And just because 90% of your customers use PayPal or pay online doesn't mean that the other 10% will. So by allowing your customers to pay by credit card if you can, or by check, you'll be able to remove most of the barriers of payment from most of your customers. And there are a small percentage of customers who want to use the check. Ensure that your customers can pay the way they want to. Include your mailing address on all your invoices. I forget to do that sometimes. I know sometimes I just have my email. So I have to remember to put my full address in case somebody wants to send me a check, there's also direct deposit, and let's not forget that, because that may work out for the bank. I had a customer that was paying by mail, and I, kind of gently had to nudge to do direct deposit from their bank account, and that it wasn't going to affect them, and finally convinced him that really is really great, because he can see his money's going in and out a lot easier and not have to wait for check to clear and all that other stuff. So it helped us both. So you want to, so basically you want to have more than one way to pay. Let's see, confirm that you sent the invoice, because you can send an invoice by email or mail and you don't hear anything from them. They don't acknowledge that they got it. You're not sure you're going to get paid on time, and that's uncomfortable because you're trying to manage your time, your business, and know that you can pay your subcontractors. So confirm that you sent your invoice. Usually only need to do this with first-time customers or customers that are routinely late with payment. With first-time customers, it allows you to make sure that invoicing details are correct. After you send an invoice to the first-time customer, email the person who is supposed to receive the invoice, and anyone on it, contact them all, and let them know that you just sent an invoice, and let them let you know if they haven't received it. So that's a good prompt, and it can be included as a casual mention that goes along with your project details, like what you're doing, your tasks, and where you are in them. So you can include it within, just the update on what's going on. And then send gentle reminders. Not everyone will pay 100% on time. Some people will legitimately be so busy that they unintentionally forget about your invoice, and that happens. I know it's happened to me. In the beginning, you want to assume that your invoice has been forgotten by mistake, and frame your reminders accordingly. So gentle. Oh, and I had this happen recently to me, because this one client I have, a consultant, is very quick in payment. Turnaround has never been an issue. And then this one time, a couple of months, no, 1 month had gone by, and I was like, well, that's unusual. So I sent him a reminder. Actually, it was within an email where I was giving an update on where I was in my projects. And then I mentioned, I reattached the invoice and said, oh, and by the way, I don't know if you saw this, so I'm attaching it to this email to you. And he said, I didn't see it. I'm so sorry, I missed that one. And within 2 days I was paid. So it happens. So as long as you know that, those gentle reminders are really helpful. And that's something that you should remember to do. And with that said, those are some of the best practices when you're invoicing your customers that you should keep in mind and try to do on a regular basis. And that just keeps your business moving forward, and it keeps your subcontractors happy, because when you can get paid, you can pay them. Although, like Tammy said, I try to make the point of paying them even as I wait, but that puts a strain on my budget. So I try not to have that happen too often. So I don't know if Lisa, if you're ready, but I know
I'm ready.
About options when you can't get paid.
Yes, I am going to talk about the difficult subject of what you do when you're not getting paid. And you have several avenues that you can go through when doing that. Being self-employed can be a great way to earn money, but it does have its downsides, and one of them is that sometimes we have trouble getting paid. So I have several steps that I want to go over with you on how to make that happen. First, I would say always, always, always have a contract. Even if you're doing business with a good friend, whether it be somebody in the family or somebody you've known for years, or on the flip side, a corporate client, always have a contract drawn up. And in that contract, you need to have payment terms. And those will include deadlines, late fees, even add an early termination fee if you're comfortable with that. I had a client years ago within my first year of business caused me to rewrite my contract to add a fee. Thankfully, my team member who was working with her, with the client, had not begun work for the following month. And the client at the end of the month says, I'm not going to be able to continue with our relationship, business relationship. Something came up and, I have to end it. So when that happened, I went in and I added an early termination fee of a percentage of the total amount that the client paid, so it can fluctuate with each client. But I make it high enough to where it's a deterrent for them not giving a 30-day written notice. So that could be one of your payment terms, an early termination fee. You can, when you're invoicing, you can add on that invoice due upon receipt or total invoice amount due within 10 business days. Have those terms written out on your invoice as well. You can also request upfront deposit. With my company, we ask for a 50% deposit when building a website. The rest is due when the website is finished. So to offset the chance of not getting paid, you can put in your agreement that the client pay half on the onset of the project, whatever it may be, website or otherwise, and the other half at the end when the project's completed. This is a sign of good faith and an indication you'll get paid at the end of the project. And I have not had a client yet that we asked for a deposit up front disagree with that, because it is business and they do business and they know you're doing business, and I've never had any pushback on that. This will only help to improve your cash flow, which is key, and it'll train the client to pay prior to the work being completed. You can also invoice your client immediately at the end of a project. Let's say you don't require a deposit of sorts, but it's in your agreement that you will pay at the end of the project or the end of the week or the month, whatever is written out in that contract. Invoice your client as soon as it's finished. Work and the payment together and results in immediate payment. You can offer a retainer, or my company uses packages where we have clients that choose a package and they pay that one monthly rate every month in advance. And the work that is in that package gets done. And our clients don't have to worry about running out of time or getting an exorbitant invoice at the end of the month or anything like that. So if you come upon a client that wants long-term work, not just a project, you can ask for that retainer rate. And that comes in every month according to the terms that you have set in your contract.
Lisa, can I interrupt for just one moment? I'm sorry. You're a little gravelly. We wondered if maybe you could turn the sound down possibly a little, and that might help. I just want the, for people to be able to hear you well.
The sound.
No, turn it down a little, because you might have the speaker on high while you're talking. That might be causing it.
Okay, how about that?
See some more.
Okay. How about that?
That sounds good.
That sounds good? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, the next one is you can hold on to the work until you get paid. That's a term I also have in my contracts, that there is a late fee after so many days of payment not being made. And then so many days after that, if payment still is not made, then we stop or we cease working on the project or, the work that we have in front of us. The holdback could be the last 10% of the total value of the contract after substantial completion of the job. A negative reinforcement. It has to be deployed in certain situations. The goal is to highlight that a working relationship involves transactions where work and payment go hand in hand. Again, like I said before, you're training your client on how to do business with you. Now, I want to stress that you not get angry or threaten your client when they're not paying. You're wanting to figure out what the problem is, and the goal is to come to a mutual solution where you are going to get paid. Assess how valuable the client is to you, and you're likely to recover from the current difficulty and become a paying customer or client once again. And how much of the money owed you can you reasonably recoup? Offering the client an installment plan is another good option. Ideally, you want to get all your money, but offering the client an installment plan is often the best option for that situation. Someone who can't pay $1,000 lump sum can maybe pay you $200 a month for 5 months. Have those terms drawn out in your contract. And if you have to put an amendment to your contract because your client is having cash flow problems of their own, you can add an amendment to the existing contract with these types of terms. Depending on your original agreement, you can charge an interest or possibly a late fee. It's your business, so you can make those decisions. But if this is going to make it hard for the client to pay you at all, you may just want to charge them the original amount. Again, don't get angry or frustrated. Try to find a solution. Now, if none of those are working, you've exhausted all of your regular avenues, then you may have to take legal action or work with a collection agency. Have an attorney write up a demand letter. It's a certified written letter that kind of threatens the client, puts fire under their feet, to that you will take legal action if the debt isn't paid. Clients who aren't scared by letters and phone calls from a business often feel threatened by an attorney's letterhead. Now, I've never had to go that far. I've never had to use a collection agency. But there are situations where you may have to do that, and the letterhead of an attorney sometimes is just what turns the tide. A collection agency typically takes a percentage of the money they recover for you. So you don't have to pay them up front. They kind of work like an attorney where they get paid when you get paid, but you still get something. They'll buy the debts outright and handle collecting the money themselves. You likely will only get a fraction of the overall amount, but something's better than nothing. And if you end up with a quote-unquote deadbeat client who refuses to pay, you can at least deduct the amount you're owed from your taxes, or can you, as a bad debt. Now, there are requirements for doing that, for deducting your taxes, income off your taxes, or loss of income off your taxes is a bad debt, and these are the requirements. The debt is a bona fide business debt. It is worthless debt, and you have suffered an economic loss. So if you're self-employed and sell personal services, you'll be able to satisfy the first two with most business debts. The problem may be showing up the third one, that you suffered an economic loss. So if, like most self-employed business owners, your cash basis is you're a cash basis taxpayer who sells services to your clients, you don't report income until you actually receive it. As a result, you don't have an economic loss in the eyes of the IRS. When a client fails to pay, thus you can't claim a bad debt deduction if a client fails to pay you. However, if you are doing an accrual method of accounting, you can report sales as income in the year the sales are made, not the year the payment is received. As an accrual basis taxpayer, you can take a bad debt deduction if a client fails to pay for services rendered, because they have already reported the money due as income. Therefore, accrual taxpayers have an economic loss when their services are not paid for. Speak to an accountant about that. Hopefully that is not the norm for you to have to deal with if you follow preventative steps, that I mentioned above. And I've never had to deal with that so far, knock on wood. But that option is out there for you if needed.
Great. Thanks, Lisa. That was also important information. Really appreciate it. One of the things, one of our viewers is mentioning a few things too that I wanted to point out. Well, first of all, I just want to mention I have had that happen to me, unfortunately. I did have to go through, I tried to go through a collection agency. And keep in mind that, as Lisa said, they'll take a percentage if they, do get anything. Not all of them will buy the debt. Some of them will just try to collect the debt, which was what they did in my case. They never were able to collect it. So it was a loss, but because it's cash basis, like you said, wasn't able to deduct a couple $1,000s. That's huge in our business. And the other thing is also keep in mind that some lawyers will charge you to send out those letters. So you have to weigh against what is the debt versus what a lawyer is going to maybe charge you. 5 minutes to work that up could be a couple $100s for them, So you just have to weigh those things out and how much is it worth for you. But I did want to point out, Pam from The Perfect Word has been chiming in, and we really appreciate that, Pam. One of the things she said, now Pam does transcription services, which is a big need, especially with videos and other things today. But so she says that she's never had a problem in 21 years, which is awesome. And the way that she invoices is actually through an Excel worksheet. So because she's able to, I guess she does it, I'm not sure, Pam, I think you do it maybe by the word or something. So I guess she keeps track on that. And then she also mentioned, which I thought was really great, it goes back to Nanette's point about making sure they receive the invoice. She mentions about, doing return receipt email, so that you know that they did receive the email at least. Now, whether or not they saw it's another thing, but at least they might have opened it if you get a receipt, and then might have forgotten it. Who knows? But because most of our entrepreneurs that we work with are so busy themselves that honestly, they don't mind being reminded. A lot of times, yeah. You're not bugging them at all. They just need that little, oh hey, because I did that recently and got a text at like 1 a.m. last night. I was up still, so it was okay. But anyway, and I don't mind. And he said, because I had mentioned to him about could he pay his invoice, and he usually just needs that reminder because he's so busy and he's traveling. He's been on the road for 5 weeks, and he's like, oh, I'm on the road. He said, I just need to give you my credit card. So it's not that he's not paying it. It's just that, and that's what happens with a lot of our clients. And sometimes it is a cash flow issue, like Lisa said, and sometimes you do need to give them some options or give them some breaks because they're a valuable client to you. And so that's important as well. So I just wanted to bring those points up and thank Pam for chiming in. If anybody else is out there, please do write your comments in. We always love to see and talk about those if you have any questions. Anybody else have any comments or things that we might have missed a little bit on or need to elaborate more on?
Well, I know I came in late, but of course we had each other's notes on what we were going to discuss today. Thank you, Nanette. And I know that part of it that was discussed was different forms of payment. And I have one local client that for some reason likes to mail a check or have me come by his office and pick it up. The rest of them pay online. Either they link their bank accounts, which keeps me from getting hit with the transfer fees, or they use their credit cards. When I first started in business, everybody was sending checks, and it made me nervous. And I was just glad to get the invoicing system to where, whether it be PayPal or through Intuit, because I use QuickBooks Online with my invoicing and reconciling of my bank account and all, to make my account happy. It makes it a whole lot easier when things are electronically transferred back and forth. And in paying my team members, I have 2 team members who are linked with the company's bank. So like this afternoon, I will go to the bank and transfer funds out of my business account into one of the team members' accounts. Because she's on vacation and the money will be dropped right into the bank wherever she's at. She can start spending it this afternoon because she's, out of town. So I like the electronic means. It just simplifies everything, and their other subcontractors, I just pay them through their PayPal link or whatever they give me. And I have them invoice me as well. My accountant told me to have the team members invoice me, so I have a paper trail of what is owed them. So I always ask them to invoice me as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I did research that, and that's a good best practice to have your subcontractors invoice you. It's just good for accounting reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if I put that in there, but yeah. So that's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up. And in terms of the return receipt on emails, that's really good because I have at least one client that never reads what I send her, which is so annoying. So I may get a return receipt that I know she opened it up, but it doesn't mean she read it. I go through that every time I'm doing edits for her on something or email campaign. Did you do this? I'm like, did you read my email? And we go through back and forth. It's like if she just simply read what I did, then she'd know it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes this is annoying because you're going back and forth all the time. But that's a personality. You have different personalities you're working with, and then unfortunately, some require a lot of nudging, and others don't. You know, so it's just the nature of the job.
Very true, very true. I wonder too, I had something happen not long ago because one of the things that we have to do also is submit 1099s at the end of the year for our contractors if they made over a certain amount in the US anyway. And then they have to fill out another form if they're outside of the US. So have any of you had trouble with a contractor not wanting to give a social security number at all? I'm just curious. Because I had that happen to me recently, back a few months ago now, but they didn't want to, because they had had an identity theft issue. And I understand that, but at the same time, how do you work with somebody and not, provide, the W-9 information and all that? So I just thought it was interesting because you may have that as well as you move forward in business. There's certain processes you have to apply to your business. It's really important. And if you don't comply with some of those, you can really be in big trouble. And you have to be able to prove that they're a contractor, not an employee, and all those things. So you have to have them fill out certain forms as well.
They wouldn't fill out W-9? Really?
Yeah.
That's government, that's a government form.
It should have been a red flag. It just didn't work out. But yeah, and I understand if you've been burned, I get that. But she knew my reputation, so I'm not a fly-by-night business. So I think you have to also take into account the business owner and things like that,
Aren't they on the background checks? Isn't there social security number on the background check?
It should be. Mm-hmm. If you do a background check, yes. All those reasons, exactly. Mm-hmm.
I understand if you had your identity stolen. I think my parents went through that. But if you're going to run a business, you have to do that.
You do. You do. You have to be able to collect certain information, So Pam says her subcontractor is her son, so she doesn't have any problem with that. Yeah, you're the one that gave him got the social for him, so.
Yeah,
that's funny, Pam. We appreciate that.
yeah.
So I know that is part of the process, though. Like you're saying, if they want to go through the process with you and want to be one of your subcontractors, then they have to be able to comply with those things as well. So yeah, so just all of this is things to consider, from a VA standard as well as just a multi-virtual assistant, especially when you're setting up teams and things like that. So just a lot of things to consider. And fortunately, I don't know about y'all, it was a journey for me, step by step. So, it was a little bit by little, that you come to realize some of these things and begin to put them into practice and make processes out and systems out of them.
What would be a great topic while we're talking about this is that, because I'm thinking to myself, if somebody, those are red flags, and if somebody says, "Oh, I don't want to give you my information," yet they want to work with you, it's going to make you hard in terms of your the ability to run your business. So it's almost like you should have a segment on the red flags for customers you don't want.
Yes.
No.
Yes. True. So true. We have all been through there.
Yeah. Lots of stories. Well, not tons of stories, but stories.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. I bet we could collect a lot in the community. So yeah, well, if you all want to see that next, please put notes in the comments because we'll have to do one on that coming up soon. So also, before we leave, I want to make sure everybody knows, we are working on our course, and we're hopefully have it out soon. We're just have had a few glitches. Unfortunately, not like today's tech glitches, but some other things come up with family and other work-related things. So, but that will be coming out soon. So please look forward to it, and we'll keep you posted, and you'll see it out on social media as well as if we have your email address. You can always go to our website, va2va.com, and fill in our form to get on our mailing list as well, so that you're well notified. We don't send out a bunch of junk. We rarely send out email, actually. So it'll probably just be that notification that you'll receive. So please go to the site and sign up for that. Any other last notes or comments, ladies? No? Okay. Lisa, I'm so glad you made it to join us.
I am too. I am too.
Kara and I both had technical difficulties this morning, so it was interesting.
I know. Which is weird because I'm in a place where, I've been having difficulties just getting emails and stuff, and I thought I'm going to have a problem. I didn't, which was weird.
I know. And can I say that light looks beautiful on you?
Oh, thanks. I have this beautiful.
You have a glowing.
Oh.
I know. That's awesome. Oh, okay. So we're going to wrap it up, but thank you everybody for watching and viewing. And Pam says she's looking forward to everything coming up. So we would appreciate it, Pam, in the comments also as well. So we look forward to any other comments you want to share with us. We have a community on Facebook as well. That is the VA2VA page on Facebook that you can join also. So we'd love to see you there as well. Thanks everybody for watching. This is VA2VA and Mastermind Live, and we look forward to seeing you next month. Bye.
Bye.